what we have. We encourage you, if you want to, put your camera on so we can see everyone and kind of network with people. We love to do that here in the comm department. So yeah, this is going to be a really easy format, just conversation style. Really want to know what people did after they graduated from GB or after they graduated from college and how they have used that in their career today. So yeah, 5-10 minutes, just talk about anything you want. We're really here for that good insight and that good inspiration. So we're going to start out with Meg. We have Meg, Marcus, Mackenzie, Ben, Jared, and Eric. So we're going to first start off with Meg Lehman. She is currently, she works as a media specialist and director of evangelization and youth ministry at St. Bernard Parish, which is here in Green Bay. She graduated from UWGB in May of 2020. She studied mass media, social media, and she was also a past COMM Week team member. So Meg, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. I love seeing all of you familiar faces and faces I don't know. So you guys are doing a great job and I'm just really glad to be here. So I will talk a little bit about what I do at St. Bernard and how I use the skills that I learned in the communications department every single day. So basically, I am the media specialist and director of evangelization at St. Bernard. And so my job is kind of a twofold, as you can see from my title. I am a media specialist and a director of evangelization. So on the media side, it is what it sounds like. I do all the media. So I manage our websites. I do social media management. I do all of our photography, videography, live streaming our church services. So for example, I made a video series over the past 6 weeks where I interviewed different members of our community and then rolled that out on social media. So that's kind of like the media stuff that I do. And then on the other side, I am also the director of evangelization, which is all about like event planning. So I will strategize and brainstorm events, plan out our events, carry out the events, manage volunteers, do all the promotion, and I lead and manage a lot of teams. So that's my role at St. Bernard. I also have a wedding videography business on the side that takes up a lot of my summer weekends. So yeah, that's what I do. I decided to pursue a career in the communications field, mostly because I just love people. I love communicating. I mean, I think we all do, we're communication majors. But I love just planning, strategizing, and working in teams. I also love the digital media world, particularly the videography and social media aspect of it. And I just love doing new things every day. I know at my job that 2 days will never be the same. And I just love that about my job. And I think that's how a lot of communication jobs are. That's just the field that we're in. So the communication department really, really influenced me in my career because, as a lot of you can probably relate to, it changed the way that I think. So when I'm planning an event, for example, I don't just say, oh, this will be fun. Well, let's just do this. But it starts with an audience analysis, such as a KISS chart. So I'll think, what do I know about this audience? What can I infer? So what should I do or what shouldn't I do? And from there, I need to determine the goals, the objectives, the strategies, a ghost chart, things like that. I use that every single day. Especially working in a church, we are so goal oriented, like a lot of you could probably guess. We're also a nonprofit, so I really need to pay attention to benefits and costs. I also have to do a lot of event analysis, what went well, what didn't. So these are the skills that, as all of you know, we have learned them and we practice them every day when you're a comm student. And I use these skills every single day. Not to mention, when I was first hired at St. Bernard, I was just hired as an evangelization coordinator and youth minister. But once they saw my communication skills and realized what I could do, I was instantly promoted to where I am now. I got a raise, I got a new title and new responsibilities. They essentially created this position for me. And I don't say this to give myself a big head, but just to say that we as comm majors are valuable. The skills that we learn are valuable and people love to see those skills. So I guess my advice to all of you is just to take all the opportunities you can get during this time. And just keep an open mind. Because I know when I was looking for jobs, when I was still in school, I had my heart set on being a social media manager for a big company. I knew that's what I wanted to do. But then when this position came along, I just decided to keep an open mind, and I felt like I was called to do this. And I love this way more than just doing social media. So it's fulfilling to me, has the flexibility that I need. So I guess I would just say keep an open mind and take all the opportunities you can get.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Meg, so much. We look forward to answering any questions that may come of you. And now we're going to segue into Marcus. So Marcus Reitz, he currently works as a director of brand and development for Happily Ever After, which is a pet sanctuary located in Marion, Wisconsin, and there's an office in Green Bay. And he also graduated from UWGB in 2003. So Marcus, let's go.
Meg's going to be a tough act to follow, but it's encouraging to me that all the things that I learned 17 years ago or 18 years ago are still very much the same that are being taught today. I would absolutely echo the piece about communication being incredibly valuable. And when I was at GB, I recall sitting in environmental sciences, and somebody a row behind me was talking about the COMM program, and I thought, that sounds really interesting. And when I entered school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I did well in high school. I was a part of athletics, all that good stuff. And when I entered college, I really had no direction. And hearing that, I joined the program and got taught a lot of really great things and a lot of really unique ways to think. And when I left school, I looked at myself and said, now that I know all this, what in the hell am I going to do with this? Because it didn't really seem like there was a broad-based application for it for me, and with the perspectives I had at that time. I got out into the work world and immediately found out that we all possess skills that very few others possess from a communication standpoint. It's some of those really basic things, right? About you cannot not communicate, and message sent doesn't equal message received, and all those really basic things that we all learned from Phil Clampett. And so I spent the first year of my career at Shopko Corporate. Shopko's obviously no longer around, as I'm sure many of us are aware, but I also spent many days waking up early in the morning, going to work, and using many four-letter curse words because I was so miserable with what I was doing. After that, I progressed into a role with a small growing company. I was the 17th full-time employee at a business called, at that time it was called Fulfillnet. I watched it grow from, while I was there, I was a part of its growth, watching it grow from a $1.2 million company with 17 employees to when I left 11 years later, we had 80 some employees, and we had become a $15 million business. And just being a part of that growth was really awesome to be able to see and experience. But after 11 years, and so my role there grew from being an account manager to being an ops manager to being a director of operations to having director of front of the house and back of the house kind of responsibilities. And every day of my life that I'm at work, I am always referring back to the things that I learned in COMM. And it really uniquely positioned me to do some awesome things as a leader. And so then in 2015, after I was kind of just tired from, I needed a change after 11 years. And we were going through a acquisition and a merger with a small business that we had purchased, and we were doing some leadership alignment. Sat down with a consultant as a part of that process, and they asked me the question, wow, you have all these things going on. Like Meg, I was involved in some side businesses and different things. And the question was, what fills you up? And I understood in that very moment that the answer to that question was not what I'm doing right now. And so at that point, for some reason, and so that was 2015. In some reason in 2012, I had written down that I wanted to help a nonprofit launch and facilitate a capital campaign. Again, with no real basis for that. It was just something that I thought would be kind of fun to do. Well, my family founded Happily Ever After Animal Sanctuary back in 2006. And in the very late stages of 2014, we learned about a gift that was going to be given to us in the form of a building. And I knew that the organization being Happily Ever After was not in a position to steward that gift effectively based on where we were at that time. And I felt that I could take the things that I had learned in the for-profit world and go give back. And I wouldn't look back for a single day. I obviously needed to do the things I did early in my career to be able to have a basis to make that kind of a financial decision. But sorry about that. But I wouldn't look back personally. And now I'm 40 now, so I've got a little bit different perspective and a little bit different outlook. But for me, the value of being very purposeful about what I'm doing every day is incredible. And other things that I recall Phil telling us all are about the value of telling stories and the power of telling stories. And when you get into a role like I'm in today to help build a community around happily ever after, stories are at the heart of what I do every day. And so I guess, I don't have a lot of advice other than just understand, like Meg said, it's valuable. The skills we've acquired are valuable. Don't be afraid to take a leap into things that maybe feel uncomfortable at the time. I mean, Happily Ever After was in a place where my sister had founded it purely out of heart and didn't have a whole lot of business background. And I knew that she was 21 when she founded it. I knew that I could share some things and made some decisions differently, and I wouldn't look back. Again, just a lot of opportunity to, and granted, the workplace has changed a lot too now. Everybody's got a lot more flexibility to work from home in different places, but the personal freedom that I have in doing my work every day and bringing passion to what I do is pretty significant. So I guess summing that all up, it would probably be, don't let the dollars be the ultimate decision maker in what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was some really great info, and I love to hear everyone's story. So thank you. Next, we're going to move on to Mackenzie May. She currently works as a Good Day Wisconsin news producer for WLOK Fox 11. So a news girl we have tonight. She graduated from UWGB in May of 2019. And so Mackenzie, you're up.
Okay, so my journey into the field isn't really what I would call the most traditional way of graduating after college and doing, communication field. I originally applied for an internship at the station when I was a sophomore going into my junior year of college. And so I did get the internship, and then on my second day, I was offered a part-time job. So I had to end my internship early, and then I started in July of 2017 at the station, and I worked all through college. So I first started as a part-time writer-editor on Good Day Wisconsin, and then I did that for about a year and a half, and then my last semester of college, my senior semester, there was a full-time position open for doing web stuff. So it's called a web producer. You take care of social media, all of that fun stuff we've been talking about and learning about. So I accepted that position. And so I did my last semester of college with a full credit load and doing a full-time job there. So then I did that for about a year and a half. And then about a year ago, the opportunity to come back in Good Day Wisconsin as a producer opened up. So I applied for that. It was kind of a leap of faith, as we've been talking about. I had never really, produced a show, but I wrote for the show when I was in college. So I just figured, to take a chance and try it. And so I've been doing that for a year now. And in July, it'll be my 4-year anniversary there. So just kind of evolved in different positions. And I would highly encourage you, just like we've been talking about, taking that leap of faith. I'll be honest, I hated it when I first started doing the producing position. I often would come home crying, like, why did I ever sign this contract? Why did I ever, do this? And looking back on it, I'm glad a year later. I'm so happy because it's taught me so many things about, the industry. But I would just say, don't be afraid to take those opportunities. Don't be afraid to apply for those internships. You never know where it will take you, to be honest. I originally wanted to be a sports reporter, and I decided that wasn't for me. I just kind of liked it as a passion. I didn't want to do it full time for a career. So yeah, just take those opportunities. You never know where it's going to lead you. And I would just, absorb all you can in college, especially in the comm department. You really use those resources, especially in your career, especially in social media. I would say, we have a woman out on maternity leave right now. So, with my previous web social media background for a year and a half, that really, I'm kind of in charge of that on the mornings while she's out. So just, I would say if there's one thing that you really want to learn how to do is social media, managing that, and, just being a really good communicator, and especially dealing with those, high intense moments where you're not sure what's going to happen. Breaking news obviously is a thing every, so often, and you have to kind of learn how to use those crisis management tools you use or you learn in the comm department. So that's really helped me be calm. And I would just say, you know, work really hard. People will notice, you know, put in those extra hours. And I'll say this now, if you are thinking about news, just know that you will most likely have to work weekends. You most likely, you know, I've worked every single holiday except Christmas Day. We don't have a show on Christmas Day, but I've worked every single holiday. So it can be kind of tough. You know, if you have a family and you like doing a lot of things with family, just want to throw that out there right away because a lot of people get into it and they don't know until they're in it. And when you're in a contract in news, you can't get out of it. Basically, you have to buy it out, which is really expensive. So just want to be upfront with that. But it's really rewarding. I wanted to do something helping the community. And, you know, this was my way of giving back. My parents, I come from a family of teachers, so that was not for me. But I knew with this position and being in news, you can help serve your community and just make a difference by letting them know what's going on and, you know, holding those public officials accountable.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. You know, there's so many opportunities in the communication field. You know, we've seen already, we have OrgComm, we have social media, and now we have news. You know, there's just so many opportunities. So thank you very much. Next, we're going to talk to Ben Klein. He currently works as Content Center Manager at Imperial Supplies. So Ben, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I can't believe I graduated from UWGB about 10 years ago, and I actually can't believe it's been almost 10 years. Seems unbelievable. I would have guessed maybe a couple of years ago until I went to get my vaccine and was going back to GB, and I'm like, wow, it's been a while. I'm glad I still remember how to get here. But so just a little bit about my path. I was OrgComm and really valued my time at UWGB. And, you know, I feel like everyone's mentioned Phil so far. Phil is one of those people you just can't get out of your head when you take on something and have, you know, any sort of responsibility related to communications. And I'll never forget this. So I took my senior year, I took 3 Phil classes in one semester. And the third one, he stopped and pointed at me and he's like, "Are you in 3 of my classes in one semester?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Bold move." That was it. But I think that semester probably prepared me for what the work life and adult world was about to be like, you know, because it's some of the classes he puts you through and some of that is definitely how it goes. So after college, I had worked at a local sporting goods store. I had helped run that, and I had been there for about 8-9 years, something like that. And from there, I just realized, you know, I was looking for something more in the field. And I ended up joining Imperial Supplies about 8 years ago as a sales rep. And I'll never forget. So when I left there, people were taking bets on how long I would last there because, you know, I started out cold calling. And, you know, a lot of people think cold calling is miserable and it's just it's a really tough job. So people are taking bets, and I still haven't found out who took the 8-year bet because I'm still at Imperial. So I should have bet on that. But I started at Imperial 8 years ago as a dedicated account advisor on the phones. And I did that for about 2 years before I joined the training role. And then that's where I really started to kind of hone in and use a lot of the communication background. So I did anything from helping our new hires onboard to training our 120 to 150 inside sales reps. And I can tell you so many things that I learned in school through communications, all the different classes and programs to, you know, target different adult learning styles, to, you know, reach different individuals in terms of where they're at and kind of their technology and their learning abilities and that kind of, you know, just where they're at. That really helped me to excel as a trainer. So I had done that for about 3 years, and then Imperial is really big on growth. So from there, I just realized I wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit more, and took on a manager role. So I manage a team of anywhere from like 8 to 12, 13 people. I've been doing that for about 3 years. I absolutely love it. Just I think managing people and helping people solve their problems, or if they have an upset customer, how can we, you know, work through something like that? It's really rewarding, and there's so many different things that we can use day in, day out. You know, one of the things they threw out there in terms of things to prepare for this, was interview advice. I do a lot of interviewing of sales reps and things like that. One thing I felt like, in college, people tell you, it really sets you up where you feel like you're going to go in and you should be promoted to manager right away. And I would say one of my biggest pieces of advice is, go out there and, find a company that you can ask some good questions in an interview and find out a company where it has a lot of growth potential, a company that it believes in developing people, has opportunities for you. That's what you want to look for, not to be manager, CEO. I've had a number of interviews where somebody says, oh, and the next, you ask a 5-year plan, they say they want to be CEO in 5 years. It's like, you start peeking in the next resume you're starting to look at. So go in humble, look for an opportunity to use your skills, but also to develop, and really look for a company that's going to develop and put time into you. That would be my biggest recommendation. So I think that's really all I have. Jared's about to go up, and I know Jared, so actually don't believe anything he says. He's just copying my story.
Wait. Oh, yeah, that's too funny. Well, thank you very much, Ben. You give some great advice there for everyone. So yes, you gave him a great intro, I would say. But yes, we have Jared Phillips. He also currently works as Content Center Manager for Imperial Supplies. So Jared, it's up to you now.
Hi, my name is Ben Klein. I'm sorry, I was reading Ben's script here. So yeah, I'm Jared. I graduated in 2018 in December with a public relations emphasis. And when I was first started at UWGB, I was actually a assistant store manager with Best Buy. And it's full-time work, full-time school, as a non-traditional student. So I was married and had, twin daughters, infant daughters at the time too, as I was wrapping up my last 2 years of school. So the workload was heavy, but it was definitely an enjoyable experience. But I remember my last semester of my senior year, they actually shut down. I was one of the managers at the Best Buy Mobile, so in the mall locations. So I'm not sure if you guys have ever been to one of those. And Best Buy decided to shut those locations down. So I had an opportunity, presented to me. I could either transition to back to a big box location, or I could take a severance. And I thought to myself, hey, you know what? I had a degree, I'm earning my degree, and now might be a time to venture outside of Best Buy. And I had been doing that for about 12 years. So that was a big change for me. And that's kind of where I found Imperial. My story is very similar to Ben's. So I'll talk a little bit about it, but then I'll talk about a couple different points as well from my COMM experience that I found valuable with my time with Imperial so far. So I came on as well as a dedicated account advisor. So a lot of cold calling. So we are the sales employees, inside sales employees of Imperial. So our job is to be on the phones for 8 hours a day, working with customers, cultivating leads to become prospects, and then eventually into customers as well. And then I was presented an opportunity, like Ben, to be a contact center trainer, where I was responsible for the onboarding, the initial new hire process of all of these sales associates that would come through Imperial. They would spend the first 30, 45 days with me, and being directly responsible for that onboarding process, the facilitation of both in-person and virtual classes, thanks to COVID. So I had a great experience doing that. And to what Ben was talking about as well, if you want to get good in audience analysis, change your audience every 30 to 45 days. And that's what a contact center trainer has to do, is you have that new group come in for 30 days, 45 days, and then they're done, they're gone. The second you feel like you got them and you have them down, you're on to the next group and you start over again. So I will say things that really benefited me in that role is continuous improvement. And I know all of the COMM professors, Professor Frolic, I see she's on here tonight, Clampett, I think he's in and out. But one of the things that they all talk about is continuous improvement. And when you graduate and you start a career, with a company, you don't get a lot of handholding. There's hey, here's your job, here's your initial coaching and instruction on how to do your job, And then, all right, I got to go on and do my job. You do what you need to do. So you have two choices. You can either maintain the status quo, clock in, every day, do what's expected of you, and clock out. Or you can take to heart what you're being taught right now in school, and that's a continuous improvement. And that was on me. I know after almost every class, I would have a mini, CI session with myself. What went good? Why do I think it went good? And then how do I make it that much better next go around? And then what was not so hot? What was my area of opportunity? How do I minimize that, or how do I correct that for the next go around? Ben, when he was a contact center trainer, he had a lot more areas of opportunity than he did pro. So he got really good at fixing those. But continuous improvement was huge. The other thing that I would say is helped me out tremendously, and I'm not sure if Professor Clampett still does this or not, but I think it was in social media strategy class or cases in crisis. He'd have the little fake microphone in the beginning of the class. He'd grab a student, put him on the spot, and then say, all right, I'm the VP of a mid-sized company that I'm looking to do this, this, and this. Advise me. What should I do? Right? And it really, forced you to think strategically of how to answer that. You was not going to accept a, shoot from the hip, response. If you get that opportunity, raise your hand, step up, volunteer, take those questions. I know in my class, there were several that were very timid, kind of shy, like, I don't want to look bad. Take advantage of the opportunity now. Because I will tell you, one of the keys to my success so far is being in those rooms. They will happen. In my current role, it's about every week and a half, I'm in a room with an executive of some sort, a VP or up. There'll come a point where my job is to advise them on what we're doing as far as new hire training goes, and to brief them on the good, the bad, the indifferent, what have you. And then comes the questions. All right, Jared, so what? Right? The question that Professor Krampus prepares us for. And then it's your job to respond. And they're looking for you to have a strategic mindset and be able to answer accordingly and not give a, well, I think, this. If you're going to think, you better come with a lot more than I think. You got to back up what you know. Okay. So I know this and this is why. Okay. And be able to speak to that. Because that's really what those executives are looking for, is that data that you can back up what you're trying to tell them. So yeah, I've done the contact center trainer role for a couple years, and because of my dedication to continuous improvement, and because of being in those rooms and afforded those opportunities to sit amongst some very, very smart and intelligent men and women, and being asked those questions and being able to provide that strategical mindset, I was afforded the opportunity of promotion to the contact center manager, where I now unfortunately have to work hand in hand with Ben again. So if you can catch a theme here. So now I'm a contact center manager. As a matter of fact, I'm going to start that role to the first. But I'm sure I'll be learning a lot from Ben, and I'll be learning and leaning heavy on him as far as his continuous improvement that he's learned in the last couple of years or a few years in his role as well. So I guess the two biggest things, one, you get an opportunity in classes to step up or speak out and volunteer to answer a question. Don't be shy about it. That's the opportunity to do so, because when you do graduate and you do get in that conference room and you're briefing them, they're expecting you to know and be able to speak to it. So volunteer, step up. And then the second thing is, do not expect to have hand-holding when you get into your career. So you have to hold yourself accountable to that continuous improvement. Always have those little mini quick, check-in sessions with, with yourself of what went good, what was an area of opportunity, and then work to address those. So with that said, Megan, I'll hand it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those great insights. That was a really cool story. And, I sense some all in good fun between you two Imperial guys.
Yeah, all joking aside, we love to mess with each other, but it's always fun. So that's another, I guess, one other thing I throw out there. If you can find another UWGB COMM grad that you can be a coworker with, take that opportunity. It's really great. I know that I can go to Ben at any time and ask him a question and know that it's going to be a well thought out response. and not something like I talked about, the shoot from the hip kind of response. Don't let him know I value his thoughts, but that's definitely something that helps.
Yeah,
Awesome.
could I quick add on that?
Sure,
As a
go
grad,
ahead.
So our two anchors on the weekend are actually UWGB grads, Ben Krumholz and Kia Murray. So it's actually really cool to be able to work with, like Jared said, super cool to see grads doing good things. So yeah.
Yes, exactly. We're all here for each other. We're all working to succeed. And, you know, if we down the line, we meet again and say, hey, you know, we share old war stories, you know, from Phil Kleppett's class or Danielle Bina's class. It's just so fun. That's really what we're all about here. So yeah, we do have one more speaker, Eric, I believe. So he works as a acquisition supervisor for Dental City. I believe he should be here. So Eric, if you are, the floor is yours.
Jared, you intimidated him.
All right, so I'll fill in for Eric. I work for Dental, so no.
Oh, that's okay. You know, if he does come in, we'll more than welcome in. We're all about, you know, doing what we do. So if we want to, we can go on to our Q&A session. So if anyone has any questions, you know, feel free. I can kind of manage here who's wanting to talk, but just the floor is yours. I'll start. I accidentally unmuted myself. So here we go. My first question, I guess, would be, let's see, who do I want to put the plug on today? I guess, Meg, what would you say would be the most beneficial thing in the world of social media right now, working with the, you know, the parish side of things in COVID? Have you seen any changes? Do you post more now that we're in this time? Obviously, we're virtually here a lot. Just so kind of talk about that. Like, what have you seen, the challenges and the benefits coming?
Yeah, so I actually started at St. Bernard like 2 months before COVID happened. So I had like 2 months of normalcy before the world just like exploded. So during COVID, I have learned on the social media aspect that people love videos. I think people really like to just like see faces and hear people talk, and just people will like engage in the comments a lot in videos. And if you're doing like live streaming, people love that. I think people just miss like that human connection. So we do a lot of videos, and I would say that we post a lot more than we would if COVID was not a thing. I know when I first started those 2 months, I think I posted like on Facebook, just for one example, once a week. And now I'm posting like 3 or 4 times a week, just different kinds of content, because people need that. That's what people do, especially in a church where there's we have a big older population at the church. So a lot of people aren't coming to church or coming to our events. So we will try to fill that gap and make people feel connected on social media. So I guess I would just say social media is so crucial now more than ever. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Yes, so I have a question for Mackenzie. So I'm actually currently I work in a business role for a fast casual restaurant, and I'm looking to transfer into journalism upon graduation. So I guess I'm just looking for like, what's like the biggest challenge? I know you said that you'll be working holidays, you'll be working weekends, and we do the same in the restaurant industry, so that won't be too much of a change. But I guess what would you like prepare me for? Like, what are like 2 key words of advice for somebody looking to go into the news industry?
Oh boy. Well, I would say just be prepared to not have a consistent schedule. You know, for the most part, I have a consistent schedule, but, you know, if people take off or, you know, if the manager is out, you kind of have to be flexible. You know, sometimes, like, for example, this week, perfect question. This week, I have to do the 5 a.m. show one day, and then I have to do the 8 a.m. show the next day. And then on the weekend, I do the 8 o'clock show, and then tomorrow I do the 4:30. So you just have to be willing to be flexible. It really does help you, you know, learn the different shows, the different elements of each, you know, show flow, I guess. Just be willing to work with a lot of different people. There's lots of different personalities in news, and you kind of have to adapt to, you know, those personalities. You just kind of have to be careful, you know, just like any other job, just be careful, you know, who you tell things to. A lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but, you know, there are fake people in news. So you just got to be careful, just got to watch out for that. And I would say the second thing would be just be willing to learn. I think bosses really appreciate someone who's willing to learn and kind of understand the aspects of news, you know, ask them for feedback, you know, hey, how can I improve on this script, or how can I improve on this story? I would also say just be ready to get a lot of criticism. You know, you're going to get criticism for a lot of stuff, you know, here and there you'll get a good job, but you're going to get more criticism than not, and you just have to be ready to take it. You know, there's been days where, you know, I've had something happen or something's gone wrong, and I just go in the bathroom. Sometimes I cry, sometimes I just go to get away, just because, you know, it can be really intense sometimes, especially with breaking news. So just be ready for that. And I would just say be ready for people to say no to you. In my case, I was just, you know, lucky to get in right away, but generally when you go into news, sometimes you have to start in a smaller market. So, you know, a Wausau market or a Rhinelander market, you might have to go small, and then, you know, Green Bay is a medium-sized market, so with more experience, you move up markets. So, you know, maybe 2 years there, and then come to Green Bay, you're medium size. And then after Green Bay, you know, you could go to maybe Milwaukee, or if you're good enough, you could make the jump to, you know, a top 10 market, which is, you know, like Tampa or Chicago or New York. So it's just all about how much work you put in and, you know, what you get out of it. Continuous improvement is just seriously a big thing in news too. You know, how can I make the newscast better? How can I grow as a writer? How can I be creative? So does that answer your question a little bit more?
Yes, it does. And I guess I have one more short question, and then
Sure.
we'll let it go to somebody else. So there's assignment managers that tell you what stories to ultimately report on. But I think sometimes reporters are allowed to report on their own stories, unless I have that wrong. I'm thinking most of the time you're given a story, this is what you're going to report on. Because I guess that's one of my fears is, am I going to be able to come up with like 20 different story ideas every day? Or is that like, it's going to be like, these are the stories you can report on that we're looking for, and then you go out and get that story?
Sure. So I guess, you know, we do have an assignment manager that does have, you know, gets press releases, gets things for the daily news. And so, you know, some of the bigger stories, they will assign a reporter, but if it's like kind of a slower news day, oh, Dr. Clinton, I see your message. So sometimes when it's a slower news day, such as like the weekend, that's when we kind of rely on reporters to be more creative. So I would suggest, you know, I know some of our reporters go to Facebook events and kind of look and see what's going on for the weekend, you know, around the area, around Northeast Wisconsin. I would say also with their social media accounts, sometimes they'll get people writing into them, kind of giving them leads on potential story ideas. You know, I would just say be willing to be flexible. Sometimes you're going to get a really boring story. I'll be honest, like you're going to get a government story. You're going to get, something just boring. It's obviously something you have to cover, but it might not be that interesting. But other times you'll get feature stories. So I would just say be open, but also do a little research yourself, kind of looking for those story ideas and going to Facebook, going to Twitter, looking online.
Great. Thank you, Mackenzie.
I have a question. This is towards pretty much everybody, but in your interview process for each of your companies that you have been involved in, how did you make yourself stand out in your interview process?
It's okay if I go. I'm sorry. Okay, so I would say the biggest thing is to have examples of your work. So basically you have that example, but then take that example and explain how you're able to help the company. So for example, I'll just use social media. When I was interviewing for the web producing position, I gave examples of what I can do on social media. I'm well versed, I was taught, how to manage social media and how to look at audience analysis. So I can use that to help us perform better on our posts. It's all about, the traffic to your website. For example, I'll just use news, for example. It's all about traffic to the website. How can we keep viewers? How can we engage with them on our social platforms to get them to our news? So it's basically like you have to tell them, here's what I've learned, and here's how I can help you. It's all about how you can help the company, not, what you can provide, but it's about how you can help the company succeed. It's less about you, make it less about you and more about the company.
Awesome. Thank you, Mackenzie. And I think we have to give the floor to Jared here. There's a chat coming in from someone who I think I want some more information about this.
Yes. So I guess there's 2 points here. Professor Clampett, it's good to see you, sir. I guess there's 2 points here. One, I think we all know Professor Clampett's love and affection for a campus just south of us. That's also in the University of Wisconsin system. I did transfer from UW-Oshkosh to UWGB, and I did so to the warm embrace of our department chair. I remember emailing Professor Clampett. My story sounded like Ben as far as when Professor Clamp called him out and said, you're in 3 of my classes? Bold move, right? So I remember emailing Professor Clampett, getting my credits to transfer and line up to some of the lower level requirements before you can get to the upper level courses. And I remember emailing them and asking them, hey, I'm transferring over. And I'd like to take social media strategies, one of the capstone courses, and get it going. And I remember Professor Clampett emailed back, really a very short thing, something along the lines of, "Are you sure you want to do that?" UW-Oshkosh transfers or UW-Oshkosh students might find this our content more challenging. So yeah, it was definitely like a wow, challenge accepted. So I felt kind of like a competitive nudge from Professor Clamp, like, are you sure you can step to this level? You're coming to the big leagues at this point. And he was spot on. I was absolutely challenged and I was absolutely pushed to be better. And then as far as a press conference, I won't go into too much detail about that, but if you check out Phil's Hall of Fame, it's on there. That you guys can watch the video on there. But preparation is definitely the key to success. Kind of what Mackenzie was talking about as well for the interview process. Preparation. I can't stress it enough. When you get to interview, you're going to be nervous. You're going to have this stuttering. It's going to happen. You're going to start to speak over yourself. You're going to forget, where you were at, and trying to get back on point. So preparation. Look yourself in the mirror. Ask yourself those tough questions. I usually would like to find 2 or 3 questions that I stump myself on and go, I don't know how to answer this question. And then I would force myself to think about it and come up with a response for it. And the other important thing to what Mackenzie was talking about as well is when they're interviewing, they really aren't looking for hypotheticals. They're looking for you to come to the table with experience. So when they ask you, share a time that you had to use critical thinking or share a time where you had to do whatever it was, they're not asking you to say, well, this is what I would do. They're asking you to say, this is what I did, and this is what I learned from it. So you definitely have to speak to multiple different things. Don't just answer the initial question. I always look at the situation, the outcome, and then what was the follow-up to that. And the follow-up could be in multiple different sides of it. If I'm a leader, if I'm applying for a leadership position, what did that follow-up look like with that associate? Okay, because it's one thing to say, hey, this is what I expect of you, but you have to inspect what you expect, right? So that follow-up portion has to be there. So they're looking for you to be able to speak to that. So if you lay out some expectations, what's your follow-up going to look like to those expectations? And then if you're applying for something that's not necessarily leadership level position, it's still a situation, the outcome, and then what did you learn from it? What did you take away from it? A lot of employers are looking for some humility, especially when it comes to failure. All right. So sometimes they ask you a question like to share a time that you created a plan and execute that plan, but it didn't work out. That stumps a lot of people because they're like, oh, is this a trick question? No, it's not. They're looking for you to share your humility and go, hey, this is what happened and this is how I failed. But more importantly, what they're looking for is what did you learn from it? And then what are you doing differently so that it doesn't happen again? So preparation, speak to the situation, the outcome, and either what you took from it or the follow-up to that as well. But definitely Phil's Hall of Fame. If you want to see me stand in front of the lights for cases of crisis and sweat bullets, it's a good time. It's fun to watch.
Jared, you did a remarkable job. I talk about it all the time. So you did an incredible job. So
Thank you.
All the cases students that are in the meeting now, this is one you should watch. It's just knocked it out of the park.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I had a good teacher.
You just made the right strategic decision moving schools.
Yeah, that as well. Yes, sir.
Awesome. I did see we do have a question for pretty much all of our alumni from Professor Freilich. Do any of you still ride the elevator or do you take the steps?
The stairs for sure. You never know. You never know who you're going to meet on the stairs.
No.
That's my advice. Always take the stairs.
All right, good.
Elevator for convenience. I speak with people all day. I just need a break.
Well, in the current state of COVID, I do work downstairs, so I do take the stairs. I wish I had an elevator. My wife, Amy, I've tried to talk her into it, but she just won't hear me out. So maybe I need to come back to UWGB and think about some more strategical mindsets or strategies I can use against her to get me an elevator in our house. But stairs for now. Back at the office, that's a different story. Maybe I'll look at the elevator instead of the stairs.
All I know is when we go back to the office, whatever Jared's taking, I'm taking the opposite.
Ah!
Love it, Ben.
This has been so great. Awesome. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I have one. If you may have covered it. I'm going back and forth between the two, so I don't mean to. If you already covered it, no problem. I would be interested to know what skills that when they go out to apply for a job, the grads can say, this is a skill set that I have that most of the other people do not have that are applying for the job. Is there some hook or something that you could say or a way of saying it that maybe we haven't thought about that you discovered?
I would say like from a news aspect, we and news and sports, if you want to get into the, the TV industry, sports covering field here, something about Green Bay, we're lucky to have, our athletic program So I would just speak on that, I went to college in a diversified sports market, TV market, medium-sized market. So that's something I think they can bring to the table. And especially, Professor Bina was in the field for quite a while. So we have some, they can say, yeah, I had an anchor as a professor, and just kind of bringing that to the table as well.
I'll jump in on top of that too. And one thing I would say, doing a lot of interviews myself, is one thing I would recommend is one thing that I can't stand when doing interviews is when you can tell that somebody hasn't read the job description very clearly. And that is step one. And I can get it when you guys graduate and, you're trying to apply to say 15, 20 places. And I apologize if you can hear my 3-year-old crying, trying to get down here. But when you're applying to a lot of places, it can be really easy to skip over that simple step, but make sure you prep before an interview and look at what qualifications are they looking for and what skills. So back to Professor Clampett's, question, align what they're looking for in the skills in your response. So take the time, write it down, and look at what skills do they want and how can you make your answers fit those skills. Because if you can bring to the table, hey, they're looking for this sort of strategic thinking, how can you show them in the interview without them even having to ask that you are a strategic thinker that fits the specific question they put on their description? Because if you do that, it's going to be a slam dunk. And if you don't look at it, and if you don't read it, you're more than likely not going to get a second interview, callback, or the job.
I'd also say, to add on the resume part, you don't want to give too much away, kind of be very, not discreet, but just very, boom, 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 you have everything. So that way they can ask more about your experience. Don't miss everything, because obviously there's going to be a lot of people applying, especially in news that's competitive. So just give them, your brief little statements, and I would just say then that gives them the opportunity to ask you more in the interview so you can elaborate more.
And I don't think, and granted, I'm sure the program has changed since I've been there. I'm starting to feel like I've aged out, but I don't think you can undervalue the application that comes within the program and the applied learning that's there, right? So while you may not have the direct experience, whether it's through an internship or something else, chances are pretty good that within the program, you have an experience that's real enough to speak to demonstrate, again, your ability to think and think strategically. So I wouldn't underplay the value of what you've got out of the classroom to be able to apply from the perspective of these are the experiences that I have, because the stuff Jared was talking about it earlier, and so has Ben. I mean, the stuff that's going on in the classroom at UWGB in the communications program translates very well into what's going on in the real world. So I wouldn't undervalue the experiences that you've got inside the classroom as well.
Mark, it's great to see you. You've been very successful in your career. I don't know if you asked this before, but I'll throw this out. I don't mean to take over or anything, so I want your deal, but I have all these questions. You know me. I have 1,000 stories for Matt if he needs them, but I have 1,000 questions too. But one thing that I thought I maybe you've already addressed it, and maybe Ben can address it as well. When you made a number of career transitions, so have you talked about this at all on this call?
The transitions? Oh,
no. I mean, the reason why I wanted to ask it is one of the toughest parts of, being out there in the quote unquote real world is, when do you decide to transition and how did you go about doing that? So I don't know if you've addressed that, and I don't know who else has made a career transition, but I know Marcus has gone, as far as I can track, 3 or 4 major job changes in different industries, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I think for me, it just came down to the point where, well, my first one was, I didn't talk about the first one that I made, from Shopko to Fulfillment, which became Elevate 97. That particular one, and I would just leave this out there as well as part of some of the life advice that I would have, is make sure that everywhere along the way you're leaving doors open. The first career that I accepted at Shopko Corporate, I actually also had an offer from the employer that I later went to. And they were offering me it was kind of like a lead generation opportunity instead of going to Shopko, and it would have been less benefits and less pay and all those things. And when I went to Shopko, I wasn't fulfilled. And that employer that told me I was underqualified for the role that I had actually applied for, about 8 months later, reached out to me and asked me if I knew anybody that would be looking for this type of role that they didn't accept me into. And I started asking some questions and went back and interviewed, and they said, well, I started asking questions and they said, are you asking about this for a friend or somebody you know, or are you personally interested? And I said, I'd love to talk to you. And sat down and they said, well, this is really interesting. 8 months ago, we told you you were underqualified for this role. Now we're going to tell you you're overqualified for this role. And so they actually created a position for me. And I just saw incredible growth opportunity within the organization. In that same breath, that organization, I grew up under two very entrepreneurial people that helped me see the world with a whole different lens. And those people today are still mentors for me. And so that opportunity to make sure you identify people that you can learn from throughout your career is incredibly valuable. And most often, I mean, I just had this conversation with somebody today. I mean, my role today is I talk to a lot of different people, working with various donors of various different income levels with various backgrounds. And in my experience, nobody is unreachable. And it's a matter of creating the right connection that opens that door. But people genuinely want to help people. And if you're looking for some advice through life or through your career, people are there to do it. You just got to align yourself with the right people and then make sure you nurture those relationships.
Awesome.
Yeah, just
awesome.
sorry.
I was just say awesome. That's some really great advice. Thank you, Marcus.
Bet. And I just to tag on to that, just to reiterate what I said earlier, with the second move that I made, it really was about, I had reached a point where I had learned so much. I knew that I could apply that learning someplace else in a different way. And I was tired, and I didn't feel that I was the best version of who I am. And I also didn't feel that my employer was getting the maximum value out of me, and that the position needed something that I was no longer really able to give it, just because I was kind of fried mentally. And so I made a move. And I just, there was a gentleman, an entrepreneur in Green Bay, who said this I went through a Leadership Green Bay program. And one of the things they said was kind of every 5 to 7 years, just reassess and make sure you're where you belong. And don't allow yourself to just kind of get stuck and going through the motions. I was thinking about it on my way to log in here tonight. And it's hard to believe that I'm 17 years removed from UWGB, or 18 years removed from UWGB already. And your career is really actually pretty short. In all reality, I might be halfway through what I'm, here to do from a career perspective. And I personally, I don't think I'll ever quit, because it's passion that moves me forward and things to do. But from a true career perspective, I might be more than halfway done already. And that's pretty crazy to think about.
No, I see Meg is on the phone. Meg on here too. So I shouldn't be involved as much. I promise to pull away, but Meg must have a story about career transition too, right, Meg?
Hello, Phil. Good to see you too. I was just reading your chat. Yeah, well, I have 3 jobs since I graduated. I was telling everyone that I work at St. Bernard Parish right now as a media specialist. And I also do wedding videography on the side. And then I also had in there, I was an assistant to a celebrity, which was pretty cool. So yeah, I have had 3 jobs since graduation.
That's pretty cool, Meg.
You just leave something like that hang. Are you able to share who the celebrity was?
Yeah, I can share some of it. I did have to sign an NDA. It was pretty cool. I don't know if any of you have seen Crazy Ex-Girlfriend at all. It's a show on Netflix. I was an assistant to Gabrielle Ruiz, who is Valencia on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So I managed her social media for her, and her emails and all of her classes that she did. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, I've been like all over the place with careers, figuring out what I liked to do, what I didn't like to do, that sort of thing. So I think keeping an open mind is really, really important.
I thought it was me, Meg. I thought I was the celebrity. I'm
I
really
can't tell them that,
disappointed.
Phil.
You kept saying I have helping a celebrity. I thought I was the one. Oh, I'm disappointed.
Kendra, did you have a question? I think before you wanted to ask something. Go ahead.
Yeah, mine's pretty generalized, but so obviously with the communication field, there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of opportunity for growth, and a lot of jobs. So how did any of you can answer this? How did you start to navigate which direction you wanted to go? Was it more passion oriented, what you wanted to do? Was it networking and, oh, this person told me about this opportunity, maybe that'd be good for me? Is it a huge combination of all of that? What did you find was like the best way for you to navigate what jobs to start applying for?
I feel like it's dramatically different today from when I came in, but what I have seen throughout my career is it seems like the most meaningful connections in getting to where you're meant to be is really through networking, and the most powerful symbiotic relationships between an employer and an employee, in my experiences, seem like they come about just by making sure you're meeting the right people and making sure people know what you're in search of.
Yeah, I think to add on that, I still keep in contact with our employees that have transferred to other bigger markets, and I would just say, keep those keep those connections. Always check in on those people. Just speaking on the news industry, it is a very small world, and you never know who will know someone where you are applying to. So in the past, I've actually had, I would say keep your LinkedIn open as well. That's a really useful tool. In the past, I've had, a Milwaukee station reach out to me. I've had different stations reach out to me, just, by having mutual connections on LinkedIn. So just keep those connections open, always nurture them, because you never know who's going to help you get your job, to be honest. So, yeah.
I want to build off what Marcus said before. I honestly think it's changed so much even in the 10 years since I graduated. It's just crazy. I mean, you look at some of the social media jobs and things that are out there. It's just, it was few and far between when I graduated. And at the time, that's kind of what I was looking for. Didn't find it. Knew that I had always been told I was a professional bullshitter. So I applied those skills and went for sales. And the biggest thing I was looking for was I just knew I wanted to go somewhere that was an organization I could grow with. And I think if you have an open mindset to that, you're not always going to find your dream job right out of college. Find an organization that you believe in, that believes in its employees and has room to grow, and dedicate yourself, kind of like Jared said earlier, to being better every single day and every single role. And hopefully you'll find that job. And kind of like Marcus said, or if you give it time and you really dedicate yourself and realize that's not your passion and not for you, then find something else and move on to that too. That's okay. Biggest thing is dedicate yourself, give it some time too, because that's one thing, doing interviews, you don't want somebody who's job hopping every 6 months, because then you can tell that they're not giving it the time that a job needs. It takes more than 6 months to truly learn and to be successful at a position. So if you find something, give it time, give yourself time to grow and develop in it. And if it's not that, then move on. And with that, I'm going to sign off. I got to put some little girls to bed. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Ben.
You can always look me up on LinkedIn too.
Awesome. Have a great night.
Bye, guys.
I'd also say, I know if, the news schedule can be really tough, especially on the body. I'll be very honest. When I first started, my shift was 3:45 to 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays and Sundays. And so I would do that. And then sometimes I would do it during the week. So I would do school, do the job, come half tired to my classes. But, can kind of lead to a burnout. I've heard people, just leave news. And another cool thing about news is that a lot of people tend to gravitate towards the PR because it's kind of the same. You still have to write press releases. You're still doing a lot of writing. You're still, reaching out to media agencies. So having that prior relationship with a news station kind of helps you. For example, one of our reporters, she's been gone about a year now. She now lives in Oregon. She lives in Portland, and she works for a PR company, and she loves it. So news, for the lucky part about communication is that you can transition. Obviously it's not going to be easy, but you can transition to different communication related fields, and there's a lot of doors open for you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. If anyone else does have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm here. But if no one else has really anything, the floor is open. Everyone has been great. It's been so cool to just, reconnect with some people I haven't seen in a year or so, and just meet some new faces. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Yes, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you being a part of our event for COMM Week 2021. Everything looks a little different since we're all on Zoom now, but we really appreciate you being a part of it. Thanks for pushing us forward. We appreciate the help.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure talking to you all.
Awesome. Well, you guys have a great night, and happy COMM Week 2021.